Sex and gifts are the currency of established marriages. Yeah, I'm saying it out loud. Absolutely. And tell me if this is not true, because it certainly was true for me. Do you remember in the beginning when we couldn't keep our hands off each other? When people used to look at us and say, rolling their eyes, you could get a room. Yeah, those people. How did our life go from that to the point where you reduced to getting a hand job on your birthday and feel lucky for it? Yeah, yeah. Did I get too real? This is an adult show, by the way. Not trying to be graphic. I'm just speaking the truth. My marriage, this exchange, and the motivation for the exchange not being the love we had for each other, but being what we're going to get in return, absolutely became this thing where I give you this if you do that. You didn't do this, so you don't get that. Scoreboard, I'm leading. Were you picking it up? Oh, you don't want to play anymore? Okay, now I don't want to play anymore either. And there we are laying in the bed facing the other direction. Yeah. Tell me if any of that sounds familiar to you. So you have to ask yourself, and I did ask myself, what was driving this trend line that felt like estrangement, was estrangement? Because we went from the most intimate friends. We could talk all night. We could make love all night. To we get into bed and we're facing the opposite directions. And like I said, if it's your birthday, okay, maybe we get this over with quickly. Now, the trend line can be explained or start to be explained with breadcrumb number 7. Here in year 10, we are no longer the people we were when we got married. Yeah, I know that sounds obvious, but on our wedding day, it was crystal clear. It was love. There is no one we could imagine spending our life with. So, of course, we took those vows and we gladly said, to death do us part. And we didn't even look back. Well, I don't know about you, but when I made that promise, I was 18 years old. And no matter what age you were, 10 years into it, you are not that person anymore. And I certainly was not that person anymore. In fact, with each passing day in the marriage, we move further and further away from the person we were when we got married. Why? It should be obvious. Breadcrumb number 8. As we experience life, we change. We get exposed to new things. We discover new interests. We grow. It's just the most natural thing. We seem solid and constant and steady, but no. We change perpetually, every day, every moment. We're like the hour hand on a clock. Yeah, it's going so slow that you can't exactly see it move unless you stare at it long enough. But it's always moving. And that's us. The thing about the change that happens with us, particularly over time, as we get exposed to new information, as we have different experiences that we never had before, that exposure informs what our current preferences were. So when you think about to what extent you are different than the person who swore on a Bible till death do they part, how different you are, everything about who you are is subject to change. So I can tell you in my case, I was a devout Catholic when I swore till death do us part. And as a devout Catholic, we didn't believe in divorce. It was till death do you part. What anything that God brings together, no man shall break apart. Yeah, that kind of stuff. That is not how I felt 10 years later, 12 years later. In fact, I was no longer a practicing Catholic at that point. That's how fundamental the changes had occurred in my life. And so this leads us to breadcrumb Number 9, personal growth is natural. You can't stop it. It is who you are. It is simply you responding to the new stimuli. You can't unring the bell of change, of new knowledge, of a new experience. And because of that, it carries no blame. You're not wrong for not being the woman you were when we got married. But how many of us have heard that? How dare you change? This is not the person I married. The person I married did this, 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 and this, and that's why I married you. And look at you. Yeah, because that was 10 years ago, because that was 2 years ago, because we all change. Are you the same person that you were when you got married? Of course not. Yet, no matter how much we change, how foundationally we change, our faith, our belief in country, marriage, our sexual preferences, all types of things, our gender, it's a modern world. No matter how much we change, we remain committed to the promises we made, in my case, when I was 18 years old. The promises we made when we are increasingly becoming a different person than the person who made the promise. You know, to put this into some perspective, the ancient Chinese civilization, they used to have a tradition called Shanzu. Probably not saying it right, but Shanzu. And it meant bound feet. It's something that they would do to little girls between the ages of 4 and 6. I mean, they literally would take the feet of these little girls and wrap it tightly, really tightly, and take the toes on each foot and bend them underneath the sole of the foot. So if you could see this part of your foot before your toes, they would bend the toes to where the toes were underneath that part of their feet and bind the feet together at that point to prevent the feet from growing. This is little girls between the ages of 4 and 6. It was within the last 200-300 years that the cultural change occurred to stop doing that. Okay, yeah, that's called Shanzu. Well, breadcrumb number 10, as controversial as it might sound, but if you have had anything like the experiences I've described, breadcrumb number 10, marriage is the Shanzu of the soul. And why would I say such a thing? Well, when you think about your personal autonomy, who you are, answer this question for me. What is more important, the marriage vows you took or the personal growth you experience over the course of your life? Because if the marriage vows are more important, and most of us lived as if the marriage vows were more important, then this is what binds our souls. Because increasingly over the course of the marriage, the commitment that we made, in my case when I was 18, conflicts with the person that I'm merging into. And in order to honor that earlier commitment, I often have to deny who I actually am. Yeah. Is there a wonder why this notion of adulting assumes that happiness is not possible? That's not realistic. Okay. This leads us to breadcrumb number 11. Happiness requires us to be true to ourselves. We have to be honest with who we are, with what we actually like, with what we want to do, with what makes us excited to throw our legs over the end of the bed and hit the ground running. Whatever that is, if we are not participant in that, if our lives are not built involving that, we are not going to be happy. I'm here to say, given the fact that we have one life to live, what is the point of denying us the opportunity to be happy, because we made a promise, usually in the early stage of our overall life. In my case, 18. So where do we go from here? You've reached the end of episode 45, Marriage, Time to Reconsider, the YouTube cut. If you would like to see the full episode, please consider joining the Breadcrumbs community as a monthly standard member. The cost is $10 a month, but you get $20 worth of free gifts. You also get access to all the full video episodes of Breadcrumbs. You get access to the research I do to support these episodes, and you get email access to me where we can broaden the conversation. So, click the link below, join the Breadcrumbs community, and I'll see you next time in the conversation.